Hey, it's the Grottu Orloff Show, episode 15. It's, I think, October 27th, 2020. Gonna show you some more comic books. Here's one from my childhood. Boy, I was in third grade when this came out. Dead of Night. One of Marvel's horror titles from the early 70s. See, I've told you the story before. There were a lot of horror and crime comics in the early 50s, and EC was that line was the best. But there were many other imitators. Some even came close, but really well written. At least the EC were, and the illustrations, the drawings were great, but they were extremely gory. And there was a psychiatrist that came out with a book called Seduction of the Innocent, Dr. Frederick Wortham, and he said that comic books are causing juvenile delinquency. They're giving kids ideas on how to go out and commit crimes from the true crime comics, and they're giving them violent ideas on how to, maybe chop their little brother up with an axe or something from the horror comics. And then he's saying the superhero comics is giving them weird S&M fantasies, and he said that Wonder Woman is really a lesbian and Batman and Robin. He talked to a few teenagers that were gay, and he said, would you trade places with either Bruce Wayne or Dick Grayson? And they said, sure. So they said, oh, obviously Batman and Robin is a gay fantasy. So he got all these housewives and teachers all upset. So there were congressional investigations into comics, and ultimately, the comic book companies realized we're all going to be out of business if we don't do something, so they formed a self-regulatory board, and this is the result. All the comics after like 1955 until when they did away with it in the 90s, 80s, I don't know, have this little stamp, and it means it's been approved. In other words, the good guy has to win. You don't have the bad guy winning at the end of the story. They said, we can't have any living dead. And I'll explain why there's a living dead there here in a minute. You can have a living dead, you can have vampires, you can have werewolves. It was very specific. You can't have this, you can't show this, that, cleavage. So that's the way the comic book code was all through the rest of the 50s and into the 60s. And Stan Lee at Marvel pushed the comics code because he wanted to have an issue where Spider-Man confronted that one of his friends was addicted to drugs, and they said, well, you can't have drug use in comic books. And he said, well, fuck you, and I'm going to just publish it without the code. So he put out at least one, maybe two issues of The Amazing Spider-Man without the code. They still sold. No one, the newsstand, the people at the newsstand didn't return them. So they were, so the code was pushed. But anyway, in the early 70s, I don't know what exact year, probably about 71, 72, the comics code relaxed it, and they said, okay, you can have vampires, you can have this, that, and the other thing. And so all of a sudden, both Marvel and DC rushed to have these horror comics out. DC made new original ones. Marvel reprinted their comics from the 50s, but not the real extreme ones, the ones that were still a little bit tamer. And there was still some gray area, so that's why, if you remember, there was a Mummy comic that Marvel put out, and it was like The Living Mummy. And Morbius, they're about to make a movie of Morbius. Morbius was the living vampire. So I guess Stan Lee decided, if we call them living, oh, that's why, because it was still said in the comics code you can't have the undead. I think that was what it was. It's something like that. It was some skirting the rules. That's why they called all these characters that are supposed to be dead living. But this one just has dead right there in the damn title. Dead of Night. Boy, I loved this comic when I was a kid. These are my childhood copies. Too skinny. Yeah, I need to answer that ad. How dare you laugh at that. But you can also become a master of karate. I was watching Metarog's, look at that. Metarog was talking about Master of Kung Fu, Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. I remember that comic. I never really bought it. But now I'm interested in it. But it was cool that they were using Fu Manchu as a character. And now they can't do that in the new movie they're making, but I think they're using the Mandarin. Here's the Dead of Night number 3. How about that? Very 1950s looking art. That didn't fool anybody. Even my 3rd grade self, I mean, I knew that this was not modern art. Still enjoyed it. Why it's Dead of Night number 4. Oh, they've gone up in price. Yeah, when it went from 20 cents to 25 cents, my older brother said, "That's outrageous. They went up to 25 cents. Boy, you should have seen him a few years later, 6, 7 years later, when DC went up to $1. He was like, "Are you crazy? $1 for a comic book?" And now I think $4 is about where comics start. Dead of Night 5. Yep. How about that Hunter Biden? Lots more interesting stuff coming out there. Dead of Night 6. You know, that's Jack the Ripper. How about that Jack the Ripper? Have you ever, you know, Jack the Ripper wasn't in ancient history. There were, photography existed during the time of Jack the Ripper, and the police took photographs of the victims. Have you ever seen them? If you're a morbid enough motherfucker, go to, I was going to say go to Google, but Google's evil. Go to DuckDuckGo or whatever the other choice of browser is. Look up what photos of the Jack the Ripper victims, because in the movies they just show him like stab him a couple times. There was a reason they called him Jack the Ripper. I mean, they were just completely horrible. It was an atrocity how badly they were destroyed. I'm saying all this because the laugh track when I say things like that is amusing. All right, well, you know, if you're a prepper, if you're trying to survive the upcoming apocalypse, if you have a Spider-Man or a Conan gold coin, I'm sure that you'll be able to buy groceries and toilet paper. Yes, here's an ad for Media Scene. Yeah, Jim Steranko got these ads for free. He didn't pay a cent because he worked out a deal. He designed all the merchandise for the Friends of All Marvel, FOOM, the Marvel fan club, and he even designed their poster here. Can you see it there? That's my childhood FOOM poster. They find it funny. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, and then Dead of Night. Wait, what? I have 7, and then I don't have 8, 9, and 10, but by here, Dead of Night had become like a comic featuring heroes, featuring the Scarecrow, not the Scarecrow from DC, the villain of Batman. This is a different Scarecrow. Exciting. The sinister Scarecrow. What is this? Oh, I guess I was trying out this comic, Neil Gaiman. Have you seen American Gods? The first season was really good. And, we saw the second. Yeah, the second season was a little different, but I loved the first season. Especially love when that little cat pushed that woman over the precipice into the afterworld. I love that. There's a little bit too many close-ups of penises in that show. It's a little bit too much like watching Hunter Biden's photography. But I still liked it, despite all the horrible penises that appeared in American Gods. Death Rattle was, man, when did this come out? The 80s? It was kind of, well, you don't call it underground. Like, okay, this is called Above Ground, Deathlock. It's a comic that's sold to kids. Then you have something, this is called, I think you call it ground level. This is sold in comic book stores, and it does say mature readers. So it's not quite underground, but it's going to have stuff in it like a bunch of naked Indians. I'm sorry, Native Americans. But that's ground level. Now, underground are extremely perverse comics that show all manner of depravity. And those you have to buy like in head shops or something like that. What else do I have here to enjoy you? Something to flibble your jibble to. Oh, here's some Daredevils. I don't know why these need to be in these boxes back here with my Bronze Age stuff. Here's Daredevil fighting Electro. Oh, it's a Mark Jeweler variant. Oh my gosh, be still my heart. Oh my goodness. Oh, and look at that. It has this lingerie stuff, which really you wouldn't be marketing to 9-year-olds that read Daredevil, but they figure if this is being sold in a PX, it's mostly being bought by guys that are over 18 that have joined the Army or Air Force or whatever, and they're buying these comics, and the fact that they're reading the comic probably means that they're not married or, you know, they just figure that, you know, you probably want to buy these rings and get engaged so you're not reading these comics till you're 55 like Grottu. Okay, not that there's anything wrong with reading comic books. Now, speaking of wrong, Black Widow was kind of the Hunter Biden of comic books. The Black Widow slept with, how many superheroes did she have affairs with? Obviously, she was with Daredevil long enough that she became part of the title. It was Daredevil and the Black Widow for, what, a couple of years? Maybe at least a year or two. It seemed like when I was real little, Daredevil and Black Widow were together in their own comic book. But, you know, there's Hawkeye, and who else did she date? Anyway, I'm not slut-shaming Black Widow by any means. Just wish her movie would come out. Let's see. Yes, Daredevil. The guy that plays Daredevil in the TV show is really good, but the people that made that show didn't realize that the fact that he never shaves and Daredevil has this part of his face exposed makes it kind of obvious that he's Matt Murdock. Plus, do lawyers really go into court with several days' growth? I don't know. The witches find it funny. That's Hillary Clinton. She's in my studio audience here. There's more of Daredevil and the Black Widow. I always thought her belt was really cool. Oh, this cover. Some covers just have great coloring, man. And you know when it's that way, you almost know who did it. You know, I can't tell you 100% for certain, but I bet you that's Marie Severin. Doesn't it remind you of that Galactus cover? What was that, 49? The second issue of the Galactus trilogy of Fantastic Four. I just love the color, the way it fades up. You know, I see these videos, and there's nothing wrong with it, where people will get these oh, I just got this out of the box, and it's graded, and it's 8.5, or it's 3.2, or whatever, and they're so excited they've got this comic here, and then they put it up on their shelf, and I've got my grail, I've got Daredevil number 98, or whatever their grail is. The thing about comic books is you should have in my opinion, what I like to, I'm not going to say you should, this is the way I am. I have an emotional connection to this. Just the way the 20-cent price tag looks. I remember my life during the time when comics were 20 cents. I know what music was playing on the radio. It was, you know, when this was sold on the newsstand, you probably had Country Roads by John Denver on the radio, and Janis Ian, and who knows what. But, you know, I look at a cover of a comic book and I think, oh, when that came out, the Carpenters were on the radio all the time, or Jaws was in the movie theater. Now, what if you're 30 years old? You weren't around, you don't have these memories. Well, I can look at a comic book from before I was born, or the year I was born, and still connect to it emotionally. Now, a comic like this, oh, this is a Mark Jeweler. I can just feel it. It's thick, so I know it's going to have, yep, there it is. This cardboard insert makes the comic stiffer and feel fatter. I was going to make a Hunter Biden joke, stiffer, fat, but I'm not going to do it. Okay, so I pick up, say, the first issue. Now, let's say we're just on that second issue of the Galactus trilogy, where the Fantastic Four are running, you know, and you got Galactus looming in the background. I don't remember, 48, 49. I have it. I have that. Is it that one I have, or I'm missing one of them? I don't remember which one. But I got most of Fantastic Four, 1 through 100, like 85, 90%. I don't have the really value. Well, yes, I do too. I have the Black Panther issue. Whole point is, I was born in 65. That comic came out, what, 65? Something like that. But looking at that comic, it's like I can touch it, and I can emotionally connect with the kid that bought that comic back then, the original owner of that comic. It's like you can do that. If it's slabbed by CGC, you can't do that. I'm talking about, okay, so I pick up this comic and I imagine, the Beach Boys, I imagine the Beatles, I imagine the movies playing in the theater, I imagine going into that 7-Eleven, and I can't wait to read that new issue of the Fantastic Four or Thor, and I sit down on the curb right outside the Fantastic Four, right outside the 7-Eleven, because I've got to read it like right then. And then I take it home and I treasure it, and it stays with me for all those many years until somehow it gets sold. Who knows what happens, a divorce, who knows what. But somehow it winds up in a comic store, and then I buy it, but I'm feeling the paper, the smell of the comic book, it's just a 1940s comic. Because I'm kind of a historian, and I know what it's like to be a kid in the 40s, because I lived that on an army base in Germany, not having TV for a while, just the radio. I know what it's like to be a kid in the 50s. I love the music of the 50s, the 40s, the 60s. I love a comic book is not an isolated object that's been put in plastic. It's part of a whole culture. And you need to know that culture. And I'm looking for props. I used to have if I put on, if I'm some, how do I say this? Okay, let's say I'm some, you can't, I don't want to insult anyone. Let's say that I've got Fantastic Four number 49, and I read it while listening to Cardi B, or 50 Cent, or that idiot with the tattoos all over his face that's famous right now, or that girl that's famous right now. I saw a poster. She never smiles. I don't know who she is. Some depressing girl. You listen to that shit while you're reading a comic from the 60s, it doesn't work. That comic belongs in a certain era, which is why I would love for them to make a Fantastic Four movie that's set in that era. And I didn't see Incredibles 2 yet, but I understand it's got all this atomic mid-century kind of furniture and furnishings because they're aware of what they're doing. They're doing the Fantastic Four that belongs 50-something years ago. Okay, so I'm just saying, I don't like the Slab comics. It's like, I don't know. I know that Buddy Saunders doesn't do it. He has a huge collection of comics. In his personal collection, he has nothing slabbed. And I just think, well, if I'm going to pay $20, $25 to have this slabbed, then why not just spend that $20, $25 to buy more of this, you know? Yeah, oh, look, this is 105 by 114. They've broken up, right? Oh, I was going to say Daredevil's rescuing some new girl, but no, that's a guy. Uh-oh. Daredevil moved on. Crypt of Shadows. So obvious what Marvel was trying to do, and DC as well with House of Mystery and all that. They were trying to recreate that bygone 50s EC vibe from 20 years before, which to me in the early 70s, the 50s seemed so far away. Now in 2020, you realize that 20 years ago, that was about the time of 9/11, which does seem kind of far away, but in a lot of ways it really wasn't. Lots of werewolf stories. What else we got? Crypt of Shadows 9. There's two versions of the song. There's another band that did it that sounds better, I think. But this is the one that's on this disc. He realizes that he just voted for Joe Biden and there's no way to change his vote. Crypt of Shadows 10. Ooh, what a great panel. Look at that. That's the thing. Like that song says, comic books and records go together. Monster movies. It's all part of the same thing. And that's not Satanism. It's just it's part of kid culture. And no matter how far, you can really fight it and say, no, comic books aren't just for kids. These comics were made for kids. I realized that the medium, the graphic novel, or what was it Will Eisner called it? He had a really good term for it. Sequential fiction, sequential art. I don't know, something like that. You can call it whatever you want, but they're still comic books. And to you young whippersnappers, they're called records, not vinyls. Vinyls, indeed. Crypt of Shadows. This is not one I bought as a kid. I must have bought this at a later date, because I don't remember this cover. This is a genie. I would always buy the covers with the skeletons, and the skeletons would always get me. I wouldn't really necessarily look for genie covers. I don't know. Calling me insane. Calling me mad. You can't even see what I'm looking at. Well, I was glad to see that Captain Strangelove put up a new video, although it had slabs in it, and there were slab 50s comics, but you know, I like to look inside. I like to look at ads for switchblade combs. Indeed. Curse of the Weird. Okay, well this is Marvel. I guess this is in the 90s. They're trying to do the same thing and put out a title reprinting 50s stuff, slightly better paper. Yeah. Except ads for boring stuff, because the 90s were not as cool culturally as the 70s. Well, you have a little X-Men video game. I'm sure that's worth a lot to somebody. Oh, but it has Basil Wolverton, The Eye of Doom. Wait, is this the same one? Oh, I must have got 2 copies because I think these are like in the quarter bin, you know. Nobody wants those because there aren't many cool people out there anymore. 90s, I don't know. And all those horror comics I just showed you, they're so hard to find because the collectors don't want them. This is X-Men. Why would I want this? I had a point. I forgot that. This is a cool comic nobody collects. Creatures on the Loose. With an excellent, totally excellent dude, Jim Steranko cover. Jim Steranko, he's got everything you'd want. I mean, damn. Now I'm trying to think, what was I talking about? My mind has gone blank. I was going to make some really astoundingly astute point. It'll come to me about 11 o'clock tonight. Yes. Thongor, Warrior of Lost Lemuria. Just Val Mayrick is the artist. Vince Colletta is the inker. Based on the stories of Lynn Carter. Oh man, I've got like 3 copies of this issue. What's going on? That's not like me. I guess the cover just got me every time, and it's like, I don't know if I own that, but I better buy it in case I don't.
That is, if you dare follow me. You will? Fine. Shall we go then?
Shall we?
Here we are at the door.
How about that? Amazing. It's Thongor again, Warrior of Lost Lemuria. I think it was Edgar Casey that wrote about Lemuria, wasn't it? Somebody like that. Ooh, that's so cool. Ooh, that girl looks tough. I was just thinking, when I was a kid, I remember something was cool. I said, "Boy, that's tough." Well, that's a tough microphone. You know, things were tough. And I was born a little bit too late, but 10 years before, kids were saying boss. You know, like the Beatles are real boss, the Beach Boys are real boss. But then by the early 70s, it was tough. And then it's changed over the years. Cool has kind of stayed there since the late 40s, but other terms have come and gone. You know, some, I don't know what it is now, but they get more vulgar. I don't think the kids even realize that they're saying vulgar things when they say, "Oh, this cover really goes hard," and they don't realize that, you know. And there's some other ones I don't remember. I remember hearing kids say them, and I just don't remember what they are now. But whatever. Thongor. They should bring back Thongor. Thongor, indeed. No, they don't. Now you can get a Hulk medallion. If you just had those, you would not have to worry about people going nuts on election night and burning down cities, because you would have those gold coins and you could go anywhere you want in the United States or any other country and use those in trade for whatever you needed. Looks like I have multiple copies of that. Oh yeah, I remember then Man-Wolf. This was J. Jonah Jameson's son. So, if you thought Joe Biden had trouble with his son, you know, J. Jonah Jameson really had trouble. He was an astronaut. He went out in space, got a moon rock, and it stuck to his chest. And somehow it turned him into a werewolf whenever the moon was in a certain configuration. I haven't heard any word of them bringing this guy in. Oh, I said something yesterday. I said that Moon Knight is going to be played by the idiot that played Harry Potter, but that's not true. Yesterday, after I did my Grottu Orloff show in color, they announced it's going to be Oscar Isaacs. I don't know. Some guy that was in the new Disney Star Wars movies that they kind of introduced to be a cool guy, and then seems like in the next movie he was kind of this pussy, and then I don't know. But he would be he'd be a good Moon Knight. It's just, you know, you're only as good as the role they write for you. Oh, this is disturbingly modern in that they fill up pages with huge panels. I don't like that. Sometimes you flip through a comic and you flip to this, right? And then you flip and you're on this. And then you flip and then you're on this. You ever flip through a comic and get nothing but ads? It's kind of like you're driving along, you get all the red lights. Here's Mego dolls, and what do they market as? This was like a kung fu guy there, but he wasn't. It looks like Bruce Lee, but they couldn't call him Bruce Lee. They just sell it to you, and you can imagine it's Shang-Chi or Bruce Lee or whoever you want it to be. From another planet, muscles made of granite, X-ray eyes and super brain. Is it a bird? No. Is it a plane? No. What is it? It's Superman. Creepy things. It's a modern comic reprint. But I think these have value too because, you know, nobody ever saw them. I know they sold them on army bases. I think that's where I picked up some packs of modern comics. Ooh, here's another. Is it the same issue? No, they just creepy things like these Lovecraftian looking things. This one has a little bit too much of a spine. It's cool looking, you know. Oh, I remember buying this block from here at a 7-Eleven. This is when they tried to bring Binky back. DC tried to bring Binky back with some, I think they're just reprints, and I think they redrew them to look more late 70s and less 60s. Just a way to crank out product without having to put the work in. Here's a Charlton comic, Billy the Kid. Oh, I know why I bought it. All Severin art, because I was a big fan of I am a big fan of John Severin, and a big fan of his sister Marie Severin, who is often overlooked because she colored those beautiful Marvel Silver Age comics. She was the covers, at least. She colored the EC comics. She did wonderful artwork on her own, and Hulk and different comics. And she had a whimsy to her art, like C.C. Beck did in the Captain Marvel comics. And those Not Brand X comics, someday people are going to realize how wonderful they are. I don't know when it's going to be. It may never happen. But, you know, it's just one of those things where people need to discover, like how good Paul Revere and the Raiders really were, or how good Annette Hanshaw was in the 20s and 30s. Someday people will realize. It's R. Crumb Best Buy Comics. Nothing to do with this. This is not a giveaway for the Best Buy chain. You imagine they gave this away as a freebie to the kids, everyone that shopped at Best Buy, buying their VCRs or whatever they're fucking called nowadays. DVD players, Blu-ray. Oh, this is a modern Betty comic. Oh, why do I have this? It's okay, it must be some reason. There's always a reason why I bought it, and usually that reason hasn't changed. I just have to look at it long enough and then I'll realize why I bought it. What the fuck is this ad? I can't even tell what that is. Oh, it's something coming out of some guy's eye. How disgusting. Ooh, look at that. That's the Archie art I like. Who knows why I bought it. This is the Betty and me, the Betty Cooper that I know from when I was a kid. What else can I entertain you with here? Well, let's see what's on the bookshelf back here. Oh, here's some cool stuff. Special Strange. Well, this is from Germany, possibly some foreign country. Let's see what it's got in here. This, I don't know where I got. I think this was sent to me by my older brother when he was in Europe. So you've got Les Stranges X-Men. So you got thing talking in some foreign gibberish that nobody can understand. Yeah, it's got like a whole bunch of X-Men. It's mostly X-Men. It's got a Spider-Man Marvel team-up story where he's with Nighthawk. That doesn't look too good. And then it's got a... Oh, it's like a Marvel 2-in-1 with Thor and the Hulk. Mostly it's an X-Men comic. This is German. Marvel Superbahn Superhelden. Now this was sent to me by my old... Ooh, look at that. You open it up and it's got the cover. Die, Spinny. Nah, die I guess means the in German. Ist Welde da. Doch auch o Atto. Shit. Well, it's actually, they're getting this Silver Age stuff on nice quality paper, right? Translated into their language. And then you got Submariner. And then you got DC mixed in, even though it says Marvel on the front. You got some Silver Age Green Lantern. And then, I don't know what that is, just some generic, what is this? Just some generic science fiction story from, looks like DC. Then you got a Tomb of Dracula comic in there. You're getting your money's worth. Fliegenmaus von Hellish. And then you got this Hulk comic with this badly redrawn cover. What were they smoking? Ich gegen ein Welt. That's what she said. Look at that wonderful machinery. That's what you need in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel films. Oh. Jets Clement der Eisern. What? That's just an ad. I guess that's an ad. Yeah, that's just an ad. Then you got yourself some X-Men at the end. And this is all the other titles you can get if you're a German kid back then. They even got the Planet of the Affen. I assume Affen means ape. So if a German ever calls you an Affen, you know to be insulted. These are I actually have these on the bookshelf because they're motherfucker. What else do I have that's interesting? Don't worry, I'll find something interesting. I can't think of anything else to show you right now, but it's a good time to say happy trails to all of you that view us here on the Grottu channel. Make sure you like the smash button, and make sure you look up Grottu Orloff on Instagram, on that other fucking thing, what's it called? Go back to yesterday's episode, the thing I just joined that has all the conservative stuff. I don't remember what it's called. But I'm on Instagram, and I've got 410 followers now. And if you're watching this video and you haven't actually followed Grottu, make sure you do that. I think I'm at 97 followers, and if I could just get 3 more motherfuckers, shit, then I could have 100. So I will see you later.